Okay, hello my cello beginner twos. I hope this video finds you well. This is a recap of what we went over this week for week 5, I believe. And we're going to go through part 4 of Simple Gifts, which we now know the entirety of. Yay! We're going to do that. I'm going to go over some memorization tactics like we worked on last night. And then I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the entire thing. So we're going to start first with part 4 of the piece which we learned last night, and what I'm going to go ahead and do is start with plucking, okay? So I'm starting with 4 on my D string. All right, so 2, 3, 4. 4, 4, A, 1, 2, 4, 1, A, 1, 1, A, 4, 4, 4. So those are our fingerings. Now, if there's a difference on the recap, what I want you guys to do is follow the fingerings of this video. I might have switched up a fingering there, but I want us to stay consistent with the class, and I'll go ahead and amend that. So once you've tried it with the fingerings, just plucking a couple times, you're feeling comfortable with your left hand. Let's go ahead and add the bow. And we're going to start this passage on an up bow. What I'd recommend actually is trying this with the metronome, just to make sure that you're consistent with all those rhythms. So I'm going to set this at, I think, 70. Actually, a little slower for now. So 65 is where I have this. Now, feel free to slow it down, or if you want to speed it up a little bit, although we're not going to get that much faster for the performance. But work at your own pace. Do whatever feels comfortable for you, okay? So here we go, starting on that up bow. So I'm starting kind of around the halfway point of my bow. 2, 3, 4. So that's it. Again, feel free to pause the video now and try that again with me. If that was way too fast for you, please slow it down and try it at your own pace. But what I would recommend is running through it just like I did a couple times, so with that metronome on, and doing it at a pace that you feel comfortable at. Okay, once you start to get it comfortable with the slower tempo, then just incrementally start to speed it up over the course of a few tries each speed. And before you know it, you'll be able to play it at whatever tempo we need to, okay? So now what I'm going to do is start from part 3 and move into part 4, just so you hear that connection, okay? So the same speed, this is 65, starting from part 3, 2, 3, 4. So if any of that didn't feel totally rockin' to you, again, use one of our tactics for practice here. Slow it down, or if it's one specific spot that keeps happening, that's where you gotta be your own kind of watchdog. If there's one specific spot that isn't working, you just take it apart, like focus on that one little spot and try it a few times. One thing I saw in class, which I wanna just reiterate, is that it's really important that we use quite a lot of bow to get this piece to speak. So don't be afraid to get past the halfway point of your bow and get all the way back to the frog, as you might have seen me doing, especially since we play so much of this piece on the A string. The A string requires some broad bow strokes. To really get a nice sound out of it. Otherwise it can get choked, right, or nasty sounding. Another thing I would say is, say you're like, okay, Kaylee, I'll try to do broader bow strokes, and you get a sound like this. And you're like, see, that's why I don't do broader bow strokes, right? Some of us get kind of afraid. We get a little traumatized by the nasty sounds that we create. If that's happening to you, watch your bow and make sure it's straight. Okay, so it's probably crooked, which is why it's making like garbage sounds. So if you can place yourself in front of a mirror and practice on the technique that we do, like long tones and scales and arpeggios, practice keeping your bow really straight, I guarantee it's going to translate a lot better into the piece. If you're in the middle of the piece and you notice that there's a part that's just sounding really crooked, take some time to like practice on technique first and then go back to the piece. I guarantee you that learning to play the cello well happens in the technical exercises. Learning how to make music happens with the pieces. So try not to practice like getting your bow straight on simple gifts. That's really overwhelming because you're already challenged enough learning simple gifts. So give yourself some time and space and make the effort to do that. And then I guarantee you your sound will start to benefit for it. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do now is talk about memorization. Okay, so I'm going to use myself as a demonstrator here. Let's say that I want to start from the beginning, right? I want to make sure that I have chunks of it from the beginning memorized. So I think what I'm going to do is take part 1, which is this part. Try and memorize that, okay? So I just did the first step of this practice, which is just reading through it and playing it. Now I have it in my ears. And now what I'm gonna do is try the exact same thing without the music. So I'm just gonna look away from it, turn it over if it's tempting, close your eyes. I might not recommend closing your eyes, but just look away somewhere and try it. And so forth. So let's say I get there and I have a complete mind blank. I get 3 notes into it, I'm like, I have no idea what comes next. Great, stop and read it again. And maybe only take it now instead of like the entire first part, maybe to the first 2 measures. Like up to there. And then just try to memorize that. So that's one way. Let's say you try it through a section and you kind of like wobbled in one part. Okay, like no problem. Maybe try it again from memory and see if it fixes itself. If it doesn't fix itself, go back to reading the part, read through it again, be mindful of that spot that you sort of wobbled on, or if it was multiple spots, be mindful of those spots. Read it, and then try it again from memory. So there's kind of 2 things happening here. One is to be really mindful of where in the piece are you getting stuck? What specific spot are you forgetting? And then alternating between memorization and reading, memorization, reading, memorization, reading. I can tell you right now that you are not going to memorize it by trying to practice it memorized 8 times in a row. That's just not how our memory bank works, okay? Like even, pieces that I have played since I was 15, I could not play 8 times in a row memorized. I could probably play it once, maybe twice memorized, but your memory doesn't work that way. We don't fortify it by doing that. So once you start to get comfortable, you feel like some progress has been made and that you can kind of definitely get through a chunk of it, and you're comfortably memorized in it, then you go ahead and move on to the next part. And so depending on how your pace is going, and are you reaching kind of a mental fatigue or not, then you can try it in larger sections and larger sections. But I would go kind of part 1 through 4 like at a time and see which ones you need to work more on. Considering that we just learned part 4, probably recommend for most of us that part 4 is a good one to start with, actually. Just to start to get it familiar. But if you're finding that the entire piece is a struggle right now to get memorized, go ahead and start from the beginning since it's the most familiar and you might be able to get it memorized the fastest. Okay, so finally what I'm going to do is play through the entire piece for you so that you have a point of reference. Again, feel free to play along with me, pause it, hear it again a couple times, or just listen to this for reference for your own playing. Okay. So, let's see. Here's my metronome. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I didn't quite play that perfectly. You might have caught in part 4, I should have gone 1, 2, 4, 1, and that's not what I did there, so my apologies for that. Hope that doesn't throw you off too much. What can I say, I'm only human. All right, guys, have a great week. I'll be keeping in touch with you through these videos, and again, if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to work with you guys. So happy practicing, and take care. Bye.